What keyword ranking strategies are you currently using? The entire goal for ranking is how many orders can we possibly get through that one specific search term. Now, I know there's a lot of talk in our space around like, oh, target like long tail search variations of the keyword and all of that stuff. That does help. It's not going to have the most impact. So the most impact for any ranking keyword is going to be getting orders specifically through that search, getting a lot of orders. So we don't just want one, we want a lot. And also making sure that our click-through rate and our conversion rate are really high on those key terms. So I'll be honest with you, the biggest impact on ranking you can have is really by picking the right keywords. So if your question was, how do I figure out what keywords do I rank on? I would say like look for things that you can afford to spend a lot, i.e. you're not losing money, meaning ACoS isn't like so crazy high that you can't afford it. You want to look for things that you have really good conversion rates. Bonus points if you have good click-through rates here, but I would go for conversion rates over click-through rates. And then you just want to like put money towards that. Now, if you say, how do I rank on this specific keyword, then that question is a little bit different. And I'm just going to tell you like push volume. Now, what I recognize is that me saying, hey, push volume through a one specific search might mean that that's not super profitable. So that's where I'm saying like the real trick is going to lie in the actual targets that you select to rank on. Other things, some pro tips and some pro hacks are more advanced but can be helpful here, is if you have a specific search where it's like crazy expensive and you just don't really have the budget for it. Again, that goes back to keyword selection. Make sure you're selecting keywords where you can afford to spend that budget on it. But if we're on a specific keyword, you want to make sure that you're showing high enough in search that you can really get those good conversions and get those eyeballs on the product. But maybe you can't afford a ton of clicks because there's a lot of clicks and they're really expensive. And use the budget as sort of a lever to cap or meter how much money you are spending for that ranking play. Now, how effective that is going to be how many orders your market is making, and that's relative. So when I talk about trying to get a large amount of orders, it's relative to the other competition that is on that particular search page. Hello, and welcome back to super stoked for this one. As always, I appreciate everyone joining in. We always get a lot of repeat viewers and people who tell me like, hey, I even watch the replays, which honestly is flattering to me because it tells you that you all are getting value out of these streams. If this is your first time running across us on the internet, hey, my name is Elizabeth Greene. I'm one of the co-founders of an Amazon ads agency. We focus in on business-centric ad strategy. Business-centric to us means what is the brand looking to achieve, and really helping them work backwards and work that into the ad strategies. Because what we have found is that everyone, in an ideal world, we're growing both sales and profits. You need to have top line, but you also need to have bottom line as well, which means it also depends on the brand's cash flow, their products, how everything is going. So cookie cutter strategies, there's always going to be best practices, and that's definitely what I bring here to you all, because I've seen a lot, done a lot, been doing this for 6 or 7 years now, maybe 8 myself as an ad manager, and just seen a lot of different scenarios, seen the evolving of Amazon ads over the years. So I know what used to work, I know what's working now, I know what we're testing now, all the new things coming out, and that's my goal with this, to come give you guys access to something like that weekly, because there's a lot of you all, even brand managers, if you're managing just one singular brand, you haven't run across all the different scenarios, case studies, nuances. What about this product? What about that product? And so that's what this show is all about. So the format of this is drop your Amazon ad questions into the chat. I pull them up on screen and we get you answers to your questions that are, again, pretty nuanced. If everyone has any questions, like always pull up screen shares, resources. We put out a lot of information. Sometimes it's a little bit hard to keep up. So if I have even a resource that I can give you all, I was just on a call yesterday. Someone was reaching out like, hey, we had some issues. I'm like, oh, you're having issues with product launches. We have an entire A to Z launch strategy that we're giving away. Let me just send it to you. Hope it's valuable. You're not at a point where in hiring somebody for ad management is going to make sense, and that's okay. But there's definitely some resources that I can hand you and help you get ahead with your Amazon ads. So if anyone again has an Amazon ad question, drop it in the chat. Gosh, can't even talk today. Hopefully my voice holds out. I had way too much coffee and caffeine this morning, so kind of running on that hopefully from this morning. But yeah, really, really interesting. Were a lot of questions last week about Prime Day as well. Everyone wants to know, like, Prime Day is interesting. It's 4 days instead of 2 days. We've been talking a lot with our brands on kind of what their strategy is. We have one brand we were discussing with. We're like, hey, okay, so there's remains to be seen, kind of how the 4 days work, if the sales are kind of going to be stretched out over that. But the good news, I guess, is in terms of adjustments is like, we have more time to make shifts and adjustments. So they're running some Prime Day deals and they were wondering, like, they're heavily discounted. It works really well for the product. They can afford it. And so they were asking about, like, even potentially coupon stacking. And so what we ended up with, we're like, hey, we can see how day one goes. And then if we're not accelerating sales as much as we need to, like, we actually have 3 more days where we can potentially push coupons. So a little bit more flexibility with 4 days, although you're definitely going to want to keep on top of it. And I would say you definitely want to be checking your account daily during the days of Prime. This is not a time to set it and forget it. You actually want to check a couple times a day. Actually have some pro tips when it comes to allocating budgets on Prime Day, some strategies that we've been testing over the last, let's say, 2 to 3 years at this point that have been working really well, that are kind of ninja in terms of budget adjustments for over the days of Prime Day. So if anyone wants to hear that, again, feel free to drop your Amazon ad questions into the chat. I'll pull them up. I'll give you the answers to those ones. Or if you guys can see or hear me, let me know. I believe it's working, but if we're having any issues with audio, let me know if you can see and hear me, or maybe just drop in the comments, like, where you're listening in from, like what platform or where you're listening in. Last week, what ended up happening is we got a ton of questions towards the end. And so with that, again, I'm here for an hour, which is awesome. But even with that, oftentimes we have so many questions that we can't get to them all. So if you do have something nagging on your mind, if you're wondering what to do in this specific scenario, if you have an ad type that you're like, oh man, I'm trying to figure out how to get into sponsored brand ads, actually. There was a presentation I did recently they got really good feedback on like, what is the best creatives you can have for sponsor brands, specifically sponsor brands video ads. I have some tips on best practices for that. You'd be surprised at how many brands are not following best practices when it comes to sponsored brands video ads, because to be honest, I don't think anyone's really talking about creatives. Although we do have a 360 ad audit that we give away that allows us to kind of also take a look at which creatives are performing well as well. Awesome. So someone's listening in from the Philippines. Wow, it is late your time. I'm flattered that you stayed up to listen in. Hopefully you find a lot of value. If you have any questions or you're trying to figure out ad strategy for a brand, feel free to drop in a comment. I'm more than happy to help you out there. Other potential housekeeping things. Did anyone see the updates that you can now run sponsored product ads for virtual bundles? That is my gosh, a huge update. Before, you were only able to run sponsored brand ads for virtual bundles. And in our experience, sponsored brand ads never really did well for virtual bundles. But now we have the ability to launch sponsored product ads. So that is super exciting for brands who are using virtual bundles and leveraging them. You now can drive specific ads traffic to there, which was never before possible. All right, Happy Heat, looks like you have a question. What is your take on PPC Data Loop? That is a fantastic question. I think the difficulty in the PPC Data Loop is that it is, what would you say? It is varied because there's clicks happening all of the time. Now, okay, so here's what I'll say about data evaluation. Understand that about 12 to 48 hours look back window, the sales data is still being updated. So ads data is not specifically real time, which does create a massive issue for advertisers. Now, there are things like a marketing stream, which is helpful because that does give you, say, like that same day's data. So what I would say is in terms of look back windows, I'll just give you basic look back windows. In our experience, looking at a 7 to 14 day look back window can be very helpful. Now, what I would say, the other factor of that is there are some brands, specifically brands that have very high price points and low conversion rates. You will tend to see massive fluctuations in the data if you look at a 7 or 14-day window. And so we do have a varied look back window. So an example in brands like that, I'm going to look back at a rolling 30-day date range to make my general optimizations. So what are general optimizations? General optimizations are things like bid adjustments, budgeting strategy, placement percentages, at some point, like again, budgets. I'm trying to think, negative keywords might be another one, although you want to look back at. Problem with looking at everything always on a rolling basis is you're not going to see what's happening today. So the two numbers that are more real time and are updated quicker in our experience have been sales, so total sales for the account, like say business reports, and then ad spend tends to be the most up to date. And so in our experience, you can look at things on a daily level if you're looking at say total sales, total ACoS for a product. So trying to understand profitability that way. And then we would look at a rolling date range for our data loop. But what I would say is you want to base your look back windows or your data loops based on the individual account performance. So an example would be we might have one brand that has a really high budget. They're going after some really significant keywords. Our data loop needs to be much shorter. Might be looking at the last 2 to 3 days of data or 7 days. And then for our general accounts, we found 14-day look back windows tend to be really good. Hopefully that's what you meant by data loop. If there was anything else that you meant by that, or I didn't quite get the question right and went off on a tangent, let me know. Feel free to drop a follow-up. Oh, good question here. Raz says, hey, Elizabeth, how do you allocate the budget for products within a big catalog? That is a fantastic question. It all comes down to percentages of total. So generally speaking, unless you are in a product launch, you want the budget to reflect the amount of sales that that particular product is driving. Now, a variation of this might be, let's say we have a product that's in a launch phase, right? That product in, say the first couple weeks, maybe month, it might only be driving a small fraction of the total sales for that account, but we're obviously investing a higher amount of our ad spend because we're trying to push on this product to grow sales and ranking and market share and all of the above, right? This is my favorite evaluation, which, by the way, I did a custom chat GPT along with Sean Stone that we gave away. Let me find the video because I think this will be really valuable. Okay. Sorry, we have a clickbait title, but it's not exactly wrong. This video here called AI Fix My Ad Strategy, which I'm going to grab this link and I'm going to drop. Oh, it looks like you're listening in on LinkedIn. So if you want that link. So one ads report and one business report, and I actually kind of go through in that video of total. So percentages of total is just like, what is that particular product? Take that particular product sales, divide it by the sum total of all the sales for the entire account. And then you want to take the total spend for all the products in the account, and you're going to divide the spend of that product by, again, the sum total, and then you're going to look at the differences. So an example here would be like, let's say we have our top product that's driving, I don't know, 25% of our total sales, and yet we're only investing, say, we were under investing in that product. Or if we have another product, let's say it's only driving 2%. I can't tell you how many times I've seen this. It's like, this product's driving 10% of the ad budget here, right? And like I'm saying, like maybe we're investing a little more, like maybe it's like 5% of the ad budget and 2% of total sales, and because we're pushing on that one specifically, but like you don't want to that you end up just like wasting budget. So that's what we think about it, is like we think about it from like, what's the product doing now? And then the second way I would look all right, can anyone hear me? Okay, this mic is not ideal, but for some reason my other mic just got busted. So hopefully, drop a comment if you can. Oh, you're saying we can't hear you. Okay, can anyone hear me now? Hopefully, Joseph, Catherine. I don't know why my other mic went out, but hopefully this one is working. Thankfully, I have more than one mic. Okay, now it's good. All right. Unfortunately, the audio's not going to be that great. But anyways, so what I was saying is you want to look at what the product's doing now, and then make sure that the ads map to that. But then you also want to look at the potential. So an example would be like, let's say that there is that product that's driving 2% of the total sales, and yet we're investing 5% of our total ads budget there. Well, if that product had immense potential, right? We're limited, like we are working on ranking it because we have limited market share. Let's say we have really strong conversion rates. We just redid the listing. Like there's a whole lot of potential. Then I'm fine with investing a little bit more in that product because I know that the potential is there. What I've seen time and time again is that a lot of times when you're just kind of throwing things up like, oh, I just need to push this product, right? You might have a product where it's only driving 2% of your total sales, but you have like 8% investment in your ads budget. But like that product is like underperforming in terms of conversion rates. It's got really high return rates. It's just not a product that you should be investing in. That's where that percentage of total can really be helpful when it comes to the kind of like looking and seeing what you should be focused on. So hopefully that was helpful. Let me know if you have any follow-up questions on that. Oh, apparel. Yeah, so for those of you who do not know, we deal with a lot of apparel accounts, really large, complex catalogs. We deal with, gosh, home goods, supplements is a beast, beauty products, all of the above. And so, yeah, but apparel styles and SKUs, man. You have many apparel styles and SKUs with our brand, but don't do sponsored brand ads so far. Now launching new styles with variations, so we just promote the new ones in sponsored brands or popular ones? That's a great question. If you're saying launching new styles with variations, my question to you is, are these are these variations of existing products, or are these whole new listings and you have all of the variations underneath them? If it is a new product, in our experience, you will get a little bit more impressions and you'll be able to test things a lot quicker if you leverage sponsored product ads. Reason being is that there's more ads inventory there. Now, the exception to that, I would say, is if you do have a video creative, let me know if you want tips on video creatives, but If you have a video creative, then using the video creative and directing specifically to a product page, in our experience, has the one of the highest click-through rates as well as conversion rates. So if you have the creative to do it, it might be makes sense to invest early in sponsor brands video ads. And so I would say I'm not opposed if you have the ad budget to do it, but if your ad budget is limited, I would say focus in on the ones that are converting the best, especially if those are variation listings, like you're launching new color styles and then you're adding them to existing listings. Then in our experience, sort of advertising the best performers has always made the ads convert higher. What are your thoughts on day parting and utilizing optimization selection goals for day parting, like conversion rates or impressions? Good question. I am only a fan of using day parting when you have the data to validate that it makes sense. I have never seen day parting work well for a brand where they were like, oh, ads aren't performing, day parting is going to save us. There's a way more levers to pull that are going to have a much bigger impact on your ad performance than day parting. That being said, if you have the data to evaluate, I mean, to be honest, I like doing it on a product level or even a campaign level, but the problem is that there's often just not enough data on a campaign level to really go that granular. Now, if you do want to, like, say you don't have a software that helps you analyze day parting. We can pull it pretty easily, and so we have the ability to just quickly, again, analyze and make sure day parting is going to make sense for the brands. If you want to manually do it, you can pull a sponsored product campaign report. And when you select that report, you have the ability to select hourly data. And then you can download that report, run a pivot table off the hours of the day. I like running a pivot table off the hours of the day as well as the days of the week as well to just sort of heat map that. And then what you're doing is looking for when the conversion rates are the highest. I don't think I would care about impressions as much. Like, it is very possible that some of your highest impression hours are not necessarily where you make the most sales. So I would be more focused on where and when do we convert best. Do you have any clients who use AI software like Google VO for images or video? How have the results look like? We have had a couple clients. It's getting better, although historically AI gen images have been kind of crappy. But if done strategically and correctly and in the hands of a true designer, the possibilities are kind of wild when it comes to developments with AI. I'm very, very bullishly optimistic for the future, but you really need to be skilled at what you're doing these days to make it be good at all. And it's not going to get rid of somebody actually having to do graphic design. You're going to need a graphic designer who knows how to manipulate images. You're not going to get a completely out of the box, fully done from AI image, like ready to go. I know there's all the people out there talking about listing optimizations. They're like, oh, just put in this image and look, it created this infographic. You need to make sure that the infographic is on point. You know, the person's hand looks correct. It's getting better, but I would say it's not completely out of the box. AI is going to build everything for you, and it's going to be great, kind of thing. You still want to manipulate it. If your product is newly launched in a very competitive niche and your product price is also favorable to the market, I'm assuming there's a all right. Targeting strategy for a newly launched product in a very competitive niche. Do you go against each top keyword with aggressive type of search? Would you experience a lot higher spend CPC, CPA? Good question. I would say you want to go after relevancy first. And actually, if you want our A to Z complete launch system, I will show you. This is like a 32-page PDF that it took me quite a while. I mean, this has taken us years of testing to figure out these strategies. And also, it took me a while to even just put this together. But in terms of finding keywords, I actually define relevancy in here. So this is a great example. Let me see if I can zoom in a little bit on this one. There we go. I don't know if you guys can still see that, but lower relevancy, say this is like the product, right? Lower relevancy is things like blanket. You can see these are more adult ones. Even baby blanket is quite varied. Swaddles for newborn has more swaddles, even though these blankets can be used for swaddle. So like a high relevancy is like muslin swaddle blanket. You can see that all of these products are directly, obviously, this product. And so that's kind of what you want to look at. Another caveat to that is when checking niche, if you have a higher price product, you want to make sure that you're also paying attention to the price point of the products that are ranked high, maybe even on page 2, but for that product. So an example would be actually, I got asked to look over a potential brand who wanted to launch on Amazon. They had a lot of very premium women's pajama sets. Now, they were selling really well. They're not doing bad at all. It's a good size e-commerce brand, and they've done really well through like e-commerce, just direct to consumer, like on their own e-com site. And so they wanted to translate that to Amazon. So what I did is I took a look at sort of their pajama sets, and I took a look at the Amazon searches and was trying to find, is there a niche in this market where shoppers are purchasing higher priced items? And what I walked away with is that although there are certain subsections in the market where shoppers are obviously purchasing higher priced items, I didn't really see any search pages that showed at least not the high price point that they had. They also sold like more premium, say like women's robes and things. But I couldn't find a space where anyone was doing any level of decent market share with those higher priced items. So is it possible to sell those items? Yes. Is it going to be really wildly successful on the Amazon platform? Probably not. And how do you find that? By going and looking at which competitors are showing up high organically on search pages. And so that would be my recommendation. Now, in terms of going after bids and budgets, you want to make sure you go more aggressive with the starting bid. In our experience, I haven't seen a low bid, high top of search. You want to lean more on your bid to generate impressions and not really on high top of search to generate impressions. So I would focus more on bid optimization and going aggressively. All right, looks like, all right, we got comments rolling in. Let's keep it going. What's your criteria for when you use dynamic up and down versus fixed bids? Is down only? Prefer different examples? Exact match with fixed bids? That's a fantastic question. So in our default is typically dynamic bids down only. Now, a couple of exceptions. One, if you read that launch strategy doc, we will recommend testing fixed bids. The reason why we do that is because fixed bids, in our experience, tends to generate more impressions. And so for that reason, it is helpful to launch it out of the gate with fixed bids because we're just trying to generate impressions as quickly as possible. Now, I was always like, not a huge fan of dynamic up and down. I was like vehemently opposed to it. Like, never use it, it's horrible, it always wastes money. There is one scenario where we have seen that dynamic up and down bidding can work really well. And that is when you have a more competitive category and you're pushing bids as much as you can. The one specific scenario we found was in the supplements category. Their cost per clicks can get to like $10, easy. And we had push bids, I think even to $5, maybe even $6. And we still were not generating impressions. And in that case, it's like, well, dang, I don't really want to spend more, but also like Amazon's just not giving us any impressions. And I know that this bid should be competitive enough to at least start testing, but like we haven't seen it start working. And so, and again, all due to my amazing ad managers. I wasn't the one to come up with this strategy. But they were like, our ad managers are like amazing, and they're really about problem solving. So like, okay, this is not working. What else can I do? What other levers can I pull? And so one of the levers that they tested pulling was using dynamic up and down bidding, and it worked. Amazon started serving impressions, and the cost per clicks weren't as crazy high as they would have been if we would have pushed the bids that high. And so in that case, it worked really well. Now, obviously, optimizations had to happen because that could push your cost per click's higher, but definitely it ended up working. So. All right, in our auto catch-all campaign, we noticed some products with low CPCs are getting a lot of clicks and not converting well. Yes, so if that is the case, and is entirely possible, you might get some products with just a ton of clicks and no orders. I would look at lifetime view for these campaigns. You can pause those if they're definitely wasting ad spend. The other thing that you can do is you kind of add negatives, and I would recommend adding negatives to a catch-all campaign. Again, if you're seeing a ton of clicks and no orders, you do definitely want to optimize that. The only thing is you don't want to drastically increase bids for these campaigns. If we increase the bid, the same low converting products just end up, receiving more traffic. We like to test our higher CPC products to see how they perform. Would you recommend, should we pause the lower CPC, low converting products in existing campaigns, create a separate campaign specifically for the higher CPC products to better control? I would actually do both. I would do both. I would pause I would pause it if it is getting wasted ad spend. Let me say that. I would pause it if it's getting wasted ad spend, but if you specifically want to test your higher CPC products, I would create a whole new catch-all auto only with those specific products. Do we really need a competitor scoreboard, or is Helium 10 enough? Helium 10 is a fantastic keyword research tool, so I would say you definitely can use that. Coupon deals, percentage off promotions. What is the best for Prime Day? Fantastic question. In our experience, having some sort of visible deal. So I know it cuts into margin. So that would be the one thing is I would factor in what are my margins after this deal, after I pay all expenses and everything, because it is so easy, and I've seen too many brands just really lose money when it comes to like running out to crap in a deal. So that would be what I would say first. The other thing that I would say is you want to like pay attention to how it's going to look for the shopper. So example here is in terms of coupons, right? Let's say that you have a low price product. And so really the deal that you're giving them is like 50 cents off, right? But in terms of a percentage of the total sales price, saying like 15% off is super attractive. And then, of course, when the math is done, it's like next to nothing. Versus like, let's say that there's a product that's a super high price point and there's only like a 10% off coupon, but 10% of that higher price product's like $10, right? So you want to think about it from a consumer psychology perspective is like which one is going to appear like the better deal. Just which way does it work better? And then the other thing I would say is that anything that specifically calls out Prime Day, so like Prime Day deals, or if you can see like the coupons, I believe it's like Prime. There's one badge, and I'm trying to remember how it's displayed, but it specifically calls out Prime Day and it being a deal for a Prime Day. So in our experience, anything that has sort of the, this is a deal specifically for these deal days tends to do the best. Ashley's asking, a few weeks ago, I saw a resource you made for Prime Day prep. Would you be able to share it? Yes, let me see if I can find it. I kept meaning to redo this, but to be honest, I just didn't have the time. So this is the resource that I think I was sharing, talking about Prime Day strategy, kind of preps, do afters, and just it's kind of basic. It's not as built out or fleshed out as our A to Z strategy. Keep needing to revamp it, but I'll drop the link in the comments, and you can definitely go there and snag a copy of that resource. Hope it helps. Last week you mentioned how you can look at business reports during Prime Day to see if ACOS is budgeted okay. Can you explain more in detail, please? Yeah, fantastic question. So this goes into budget pacing, and this is a ninja hack, again, developed from one of my amazing account managers. I cannot take credit for this. I wish I could because it's freaking genius. Okay, so your overall performance of the ad. So it's not ACOS you're looking at, it's your total ACOS. So total ACOS is your ad spend divided by your total sales. And let's say like you're going to be super profitable if your total ACOS is at 12%. You're like, if I'm at 12%, I'm good. 10% or whatever it may be, right? So what you can do, because business reports is real-time sales data, and inside of your ad console, let's say on average you spend, I don't know, let's call it like $2,000 a day on average for your spend, right? And if I reach above, if my budgets are running out or if anything's running out, I know I've hit that $2,000 a day cap because that's what I have my account set up. Well, if you know that on an average day with your average sales data and your average spend, you're running at a 12% total ACoS, then what you can do is the days of Prime Day, you can take a look at where your sales are, say halfway through the day, a little ways into the day. And you can say, oh, I'm pacing about 50% above my average sales. And if I know that at my average sales, I'm spending $2,000 a day, and that gets me to my 12% total ACoS, then I can be confident if I add another 50% to my total budget, because again, my total sales are pacing 50% above average. So my total sales are up and I can raise my ad spend. And at least I know that those two things are going to run up about equally. So that's what you're doing is you're looking at your ad spend, or you're looking at your total sales, and you're saying, okay, I know that I'm above it. And then on the flip side, like let's say you're looking at your total sales pacing and maybe you're not running any deals or any coupons, or maybe your product just isn't one that performs particularly well during deal days. And there are those products out there. You can say, well, even though there's more traffic and it's kind of spending, my sales are kind of pacing the way they always do on an average day. So although I know it's Prime Day and I should be like just, going more aggressive with budgets, well, I know I shouldn't be doing that because I'm looking at my sales. And again, because my total ACoS is ad spend divided by ad sales. So I can take a look at my ad sales and then do the math to know what to do with my ad spend. And so you can be more confident in levers that you're pulling. Hopefully that was helpful. But you have any further follow-up questions on that, just let me know. Let's see, making sure I'm not skipping over anybody. What are the reasons doing high impressions and top of search even with high event and 30% boost? What do we do asking for launching phase? Yeah, this is rough. I would say the main lever you're going to pull is just increasing your bids even further. And our experience, especially on newly launched products, having higher bids will do way more to get you top of search impressions than pulling more on placement percentages. So I would test that. All right, how do you handle an account in supplement space that sell lowest price products? Rough. ACoS and ROAS will stay profitable. Products are $20 or less and high CPCs. What KPIs do you use? What changes for your KPIs, if anything? In our experience, the best KPIs for supplements is going to be total ACoS and sales data. Because with supplements, you have the repeat purchase aspect, which means ideally you're getting like subscribe and save. So you have a higher, a longer lifetime value. Now, you can go down the rabbit hole and take a look at, we have reports that we can pull that actually look at mapping customer IDs and just seeing actually factually how much, how many people are repeat purchasing, or you can look at your subscribe and save rates. Those are more complicated to look at. I would recommend it if anyone wants to go down that rabbit hole, if you really want to look at lifetime value of a customer. But really what you can look at is just sales, right? Because if those people are repurchasing, well, then you're getting more and more sales from them. So naturally your sales is going to increase with subscribe and save and stuff, right? So because of that, you can use a total ACoS metric. So I'll be honest with you, ACoS is probably going to be quite high. But because, again, you're factoring in the repeat purchases, you can still make the economics work. And so you want to find out, again, where the brand can be profitable in terms of the economics. And then the other thing that we have found is really important in the supplements category. is just to be very selective with the keywords that we're going to test and be going after. Because in our experience, like, cost per clicks are insane, right? And so if you test aggressive cost per clicks across, all of the keywords you're testing, that's just not going to do well for the account. The ROI is not going to be there. It's not going to do well. So I would say be selective with what you're testing and pushing on for ranking, and then watch total ACoS and total sales increases as your main KPIs there. And you want to pay attention to ACoS, but in supplemented accounts, if you pay too much attention to, or like you treat it as the ultimate KPI and the main KPI, in our experience, that ends up severely stunting growth or hurting growth of the brand. When comparing date ranges to troubleshoot decreasing performance in the campaign, I noticed a massive drop in impressions. Could this be because niche CPC rose dramatically? It is entirely possible, but you want to check it. And so what you want to do is you want to find, normally on the graph, so what I do is I look at the graph and you'll find the point of change. So if you're saying decrease in performance, normally you can be like, about the 15th is when I really saw that start to decrease. And so what I do is I map the 15th, how many days from the 15th until today or yesterday. And then I'm like, okay, so it's 5 days between the 15th. So then I take those 5 days where it was decreased, and then I compare to another 5 because I want the same number of days to compare apples to apples. And then I look at what changed. So my question is, when you say decrease in performance, what is the decrease? Is it ACoS went up? Is it cost per clicks went up? Like, I want to know. So whenever you have, decrease in performance, so if you say, my click-through rates all of a sudden started to be terrible. Okay, what happened? Well, click-through rate is clicks divided by impressions. So was it that clicks went down, or was it that impression, like which of those decreased, right? If I'm looking at ACoS, so it's ACoS. Well, ACoS is ad spend divided by ad sales. So either my ad spend went up or my ad sales went down, and I want to know which of those happened. If it's conversion rates are orders divided by clicks. So which of those two items went down? So whenever it's a percentage or like a calculated, you want to know what are the two factors that go into calculating that data point, and then you look at those two factors, because just saying cost per clicks went up, it might be like spend, you just have to look at the bits and pieces of it. And so in that case, and then you can follow that rabbit hole. So then you say, okay, so spend went up. Crap. Why did spend go up? What is my cost per click? So spend can be calculated by cost per click multiplied by how many clicks. So did all of a sudden all of my clicks popped off and I'm just getting a ton of clicks? Or was it that my cost per click increased? So you want to compare the two date ranges and then backtrack it into which of those things changed. And then if you want to take that even further, you then backtrack it into, okay, I know that spend went up. On which campaign did spend increase? Okay, now let me go troubleshoot that campaign. And then you follow that down the rabbit hole to find the actual thing that is kind of driving those changes. If click-through rate and conversion rate is not good after a month of launching, should we look if it is a listing issue? Yes, absolutely. I would go so far to say is if you have poor click-through rates and poor click-through rates. To me, click-through rate is the main determining factor of like, this isn't resonating super hard with the market. I have seen accounts where it's like the click-through rate is horrible, but the ad performance is good. So I'm not a fan of like optimizing ads specifically to try and increase click-through rate, because I think that can lead you to some incorrect conclusions. But what I will say is that it is a wildly fantastic data point for saying like, there's something specifically in the main image or the price point or the reviews or something that just isn't resonating with shoppers, and then you can, kind of troubleshoot that. And then I would say, even after a month, 100% I would look at the listing. You might even look at the listing after 2 to 3 weeks of ads if you're still seeing low click-through rate. Although do keep in mind that in some accounts, like let's say supplements is a huge one, the more potential distrust a shopper has in a product working well or not. So supplements is like, everyone's like, man, somebody told me that like this specific supplement was going to like make my skin glow and my hair is going to grow 20 times faster and I'm going to lose all the weight. You know, like they're like, really? Is this really going to work, right? Or is this going to work for me? So the more other people they can look at and say, oh, that did work for them, so it can work for me too, which is reviews. In that case, low click-through rate and low conversion rate can actually be also a factor of the reviews not being good, or if the product's priced like $10 above like the other products in the market, then that might also be a factor, right? So there is more than just the listing, but I would say definitely the listing is one of the major things I would take a look at. I figured you would say tacos and sales for the main drivers when it cuts spend and bids. Ad sales and total sales drastically dip. Where would you go from here? Focus on SEO and organic. Yeah, so I would focus on SEO. The other thing that I would look at is where are you cutting spend? So in an ideal world, let me say this, not every single campaign and keyword is going to be hitting your target ACoS. That's just like never going to happen. And if you have the same exact target ACoS for every single product and every single campaign, like you're not running an account well. So I have seen this time and time again, and honestly, I did it in the beginning of my career. I would go in and I would be like, oh, okay, I need to optimize. Like ACoS is too high, and I would go through all my optimizations and adjust a bunch of bids and, you know, do it really with like database strategies. And then I would go in the next day and I'd be like, well, crap, ACoS is worse. What happened? And so what I came to realize after that like painful experience was that oftentimes what we try and cut because the spend is really high is also the things that is driving the most ad sales for the account. So the things that I would look at is, one, what is the like, what would be the word? Strategy for this campaign? Like, is it a ranking strategy? Be super careful. Is it a low bid broad match strategy? I can be less careful. Is it an auto campaign? Maybe less careful, right? So I just be careful with how you're making those adjustments. Yeah, you're saying total ACoS has dipped, but still at around 65%. You know what you want to factor in? Let me share this with you. I banged my head against the wall trying to figure out, right? Like, what is it that you need? So what you want to do is you want to factor in, where does the ad sale percentage need to be for this product to make it work? So in your case, you're saying total ACoS, like there is a scenario where ACoS is 100%, but you still have a lower total ACoS because you're driving more organic sales. So really ACoS is a factor of your ad efficiency, but ad sale percentage, which is your ad sales divided by total sales, is a factor of your market share growth. So these are the two dichotomies we're always balancing as ad managers. Is I want to get good ad efficiency, but I can't go so hard on ad efficiency that I screw up my market share. So I need to have the balance between growing, ad efficiency that's driving growth and good market share performance. Because really when it comes, this has a ACoS forecasting model, which by the way, if anyone wants a copy of this, let me know. I'll drop it in the comments. Because really the only thing that you can do, two things you can do as an ad manager: pick keywords that have a better conversion rate and make sure that you're bidding in a way that's going to control the average cost per click. Those are the only two things you do in terms of ad management. And we can all listing optimization, increasing conversion rates, all of the above. But let's say you have a average order value, you said $20, like maybe even it's like $19, right? And in supplements, you might have a $4 CPC. Even if you had a 15% average conversion rate, you're still looking at 140% ACoS. So if I'm looking at that and going, man, I need to get to a 50% ACoS. At these numbers, I have to decrease my average CPC by $2.58, which is like, that's a lot. That's really low. Am I going to get the impressions that I need to drive that market share at $1.43? Probably not. So the two levers I can pull on is, well, let's see if I can find keywords where I can get higher conversion rate, maybe slightly less on the average CPC, but it still puts me at like 92% ACoS. So you're like, oh, okay, I think that's about as good as I can get in terms of ACoS. So then what I need to do is figure out, okay, if my goal for total ACoS is eventually maybe get to a 20%, I need to have a 20% ad sale percentage, which is kind of low. These days, you're probably going to sit closer to a 50%. So it's looking at those two things. It's saying like, what does my CPC need to be to hit the ACoS? Can I achieve growth and market share at that CPC? Can I drive the volumes I need at that CPC? Okay, so then what volumes do I need to drive to still make the business make sense in terms of where my total ACoS needs to be? Okay, is there a world in which I can balance these two? And oftentimes in these really difficult accounts or different categories, it just takes a little while. Good question about CPCs for Prime Day. So it's usual to raise CPCs for prior to Prime Day. CPCs are unusually high right now. I don't want to overbid since traffic will all be there for those 4 days. Yeah, what we do is we typically primarily manage bids. We won't go super aggressive with, let me rephrase that. We typically manage budgets and don't go super aggressive with bids. I would say 3 years ago or so, it was talked about more about like increasing bids across the board. In our experience, all that did was drive up the CPC. It didn't necessarily get us more traffic because the traffic's already going to be there. Only caveat would be on very specific keywords where you need to maintain a little bit more of an aggressive presence. We might increase bids slightly. We won't go crazy. All right, about 10 minutes left. We got questions rolling in. I'm going to try to get to everybody as soon as I can, although I do have a hard stop today. So again, feel free to join us in same time, same place next week. Don't quite get to answering your questions. What do you think is more important for scaling? Is audience targeting or creative quality? I'm trying to optimize both on TikTok Shop. Yeah, so TikTok Shop, less understanding of that platform, so I'm going to probably skip it. I would definitely look up, there's some awesome people on LinkedIn who are talking more about TikTok. I would surface that. Should we add new keywords we're trying to rank for in the front of the product titles? I would say you definitely want to be indexed for them, and your product title is the best for indexing. Just keep in mind that any drastic changes to the listing could kind of upset stuff, so you want to make sure it's going to make sense. I wouldn't be continuously swapping out. You can try A/B testing that though. I've been trying to rank for some new keywords, but I can't get my campaigns to spend. I need 5 sales a day, but even though I increase budgets, the campaigns won't spend more. Try increasing bids. I would increase bids to show up higher in search. You can try playing around with bids and percentages. And then there is a very real scenario when there might not be enough search volume on those keywords to really drive the results that you're looking for. So in that case, I would say actually, here's a great tip. Go and look at the campaign and look at your top of search placement data. If you have most of your impressions that are being driven through your top of search, then oh, well, I'm getting the most impressions I possibly can, because most impressions, you'll get the most volume of impressions on top of search. If you are not getting a lot of top of search impressions, then you know that there is room to push even harder and show up higher in search. So I would check that first. And then in terms of showing up higher, I would lean on bid and maybe add a slight top of search placement percentage to try and drive that. What kind of product targeting campaigns work best for launching? Mainly adding high price, low rating products. Okay, we're talking about launch. I got a pro tip for you. which I also filmed a video on. Let me see. Okay, this is the video. Go and watch this. I'm gonna drop it in the chat. This is talking about a very specific strategy when we're talking about ranking. Not many people know this. If done correctly, you can use sponsored product targeting campaigns to help you increase your rankings if you know how to do it and if you know how to do it correctly. So let me pull up that, which is also in our A to Z launch system, which will show you how to get this, by the way. All you need is an email, or if you already have it, fantastic. Here we talk about scaling. We call this our rank hijack strategy. This is specifically because you mentioned best for launching, which is why I'm giving you this strategy. The whole adding higher price, lower rating products, those are good to go after. But if you specifically want to know for launching, do this. All right. For the keywords that you are trying to rank on, you already want to validate that you do get sales through these keywords. By the way, you don't want to just be like, do this from the get. Figure out what keywords you are getting sales through that you can push on for ranking. And so on those ones, what you want to do is go to those search pages. So target the top 1 to 10 organically ranked products on that specific search page. Make sure you're using exact match product targeting. By the way, don't use expanded, just exact, and run those more aggressively. And so again, we have found that this works phenomenally. It helps drive ranking. I highly recommend doing it. All right, looks like we're up against time, but I got a couple more in here. Hill's asking, I cut spend and bids mainly from broad auto phrase campaigns that are meeting certain criteria, meaning high spending, minimal sales, and such exact match, better conversion rate, and click-through rate, and notes. Yes, so fantastic strategy. That is exactly how I would go about it. Yeah, so mostly high spend, minimal sales. I will say when it comes to cutting ad spend, the biggest bucket that you can cut from and know that you're going to have minimal impact on your total sales are going to be the keywords, targets, search terms that have high spend and 0 orders associated with them. So I would start there and then I always like to work my way, which honestly, I'm just giving you these as additional tips because this is exactly like what you're saying. It sounds like you're going about it in the right way. But I always like to think about it as working backwards from sales. So backwards, like from the least amount of sales to the most amount of sales. So an example would be like, say you had a high sale target, your target A cost was 45%, but I still have 60% A cost on that target. Maybe I have a lot of spend, but it's driving a lot of sales. I would be very, very careful with how I optimize that versus something that's getting like 10 clicks or more and 0 orders, and I'm going to be much more aggressive because I know that has like 0 impact on orders. So awesome. So much value here. I thought we cover basics. Yeah, no, this is not a show for the basics. Which honestly, if anyone has any basic questions like match types, campaign strategy, like whatever, like throw them at me. But no, this is a very much in the weeds, high quality, very advanced. So glad you're finding value here, which I do this every week. Tell your friends. I would love to have more people show up for this. So if anyone has anyone who's like trying to figure out their ad strategy, just tell them here. Like every single Thursday, 2 p.m. EST. What is a good top of search percentage to have for maximum impressions? I'm guessing 100% is very unrealistic to do 40%. No, I would start with a lower placement percentage, to be honest. I would put higher bids because again, I say this, so there are a lot of people in the space. Unfortunately, they've talked about like these insanely high top of search placement percentages. Like that is going to be the thing to really generate those high top of search impressions. In my experience, a really, really high bid is going to get you much more impact on driving that top of search. And then you want to add like your placement percentage as like a boost to that high bid is the way we think about it because that's how it works. And so in that case, what I would recommend doing is I would start with a 40%. and then see what that does. Watch the performance, because just because you're doing a type of search doesn't always make sense that like it's going to work really well. So I'm a huge fan of start smaller and then work my way up, because you can always increase and you want to, do it moderately. And then also looks like you're asking about the sheet. Yes. So the best way to get a hold of this, we give it away for free. If you go to our website, which is junglr.com, see it behind me, junglr.com. You can go to resources and then this product launch strategy. If you click on product launch strategy, it will just enter in your name, email, all the good stuff. And which, by the way, if you're on our email list, you get alerts for when we go live with these. So still highly recommend getting on the email list. Promise we're not going to spam you. And then, yeah, sorry, I meant for top search impression share. Yeah, my answer still remains the same, Ashley. I would do high bids and then add a moderate top of search test to see if that gets you where you need to do, and then like try a little bit higher top of search impression share, and then work your way from that. So with that, my voice is about out, and I definitely need to grab something to eat before my next call, or I'm not going to be that happy and enthusiastic on that call as well. So I appreciate the feedback on that. You all have gotten a lot from this. I'm really appreciative when I see people responding and showing back up in the comments. It lets me know that we're adding value on this. So I appreciate all of your questions. Would not be here without this. So again, if anyone wants the resource, I recommend going to our website. If anyone needs help with Amazon ad strategy, feel free to reach out to me. You can book a call with me directly, get you into an Amazon ads audit, and show you how you can improve. But with that, I will see you same time, same place next week. Thank you so much.
And that wraps up this episode of the Ask Junglr Amazon Advertising Podcast. I hope you found these insights and strategies helpful in your Amazon PPC journey. Remember, if you have a burning Amazon ad question that you'd like answers to, head over to junglr.com/live to join our next live Q&A session. Until next time, keep optimizing those ads and stay hungry.